So let me tell you a little bit about my story. I guess like two speakers before me, I've done a variety of things in my career. So right now I'm a partner account manager at ARM, which basically means I'm in sales. How many of you are familiar with ARM? Raise your hand if you've heard of ARM. Okay, that's good. That's better than I think an average audience of the public would company. So those of you that are familiar with this, forgive me, I'll explain a little bit for those that you aren't, of you that aren't familiar with ARM. Basically, ARM is a semiconductor IP company, meaning that we design technologies for semiconductor chips and then license that to those companies that manufacture and sell those ICs or integrated circuits. So some of the big customers that we have are companies like some that Tom mentioned, Freescale, which used to be part of Motorola, Texas Instruments, Samsung is a huge one, but basically all these companies that are making chips are customers essentially of ARM's. And so I've been in sales for about 12 years, but I started out in engineering, and in terms of sales at ARM's product is quite a technical product, and so almost all of the salespeople at ARM have engineering degrees. And I think one of the challenges as you're trying to evaluate potential career directions and what you might want to study and so forth is to really visualize yourself doing some of these jobs, right? Because your experience with salespeople generally is in the retail environment, which is very different than selling something like a semiconductor IP. So in terms of what we actually do is we're working a lot on contracts, because essentially all of our licensing, all of our sales happen through agreements which must be captured in the form of a legal document committing that company to take a product from us, and we have certain obligations to return, and essentially that's how ARM makes its money. So as we engage with these companies that are manufacturing chips, they have a lot of engineers that are evaluating choices, asking a lot of questions. So it's important that those salespeople from ARM understand the technology at least enough at enough of a level to be able to steer the conversation in the right way, to know which experts to bring in for the next level discussion, etc. So that's really what my job is all about. I travel a lot, as I guess Tom also does, as he mentioned. Visiting customers or visiting our headquarters, going to trade shows occasionally, things like that. I definitely enjoy it. As I've moved from engineering into sales, the thing I like about sales is you get to spend a lot of time with people. You get to hear about a lot of interesting ideas because different customers are working on different products, and their chips are going into even a broader range of products. So one of the biggest markets for ARM in recent years, and this is one of the things that's caused us to grow so fast recently, is the whole explosion of mobile devices. So almost all the world's cell phones use an ARM microprocessor, and a lot of other electronics, tablets, and so forth as well. Even things like cars are using more of the ARM microprocessor as time goes on. So, as I said, I started my career out in engineering. My first job out of school was that of a product engineer at Texas Instruments. And so that involves, testing and working on specs, spec sheets for different products. So that was an interesting place to start. I think it was a good starting place, but it was something that I didn't find particularly interesting. So I moved into their R&D department. So I've kind of covered a big gamut of jobs going from R&D all the way to sales, which is, if you're familiar with, kind of the industry, those are almost two, opposite ends in terms of, technical ability and so forth. So when I was in Texas Instruments and working in the R&D department there, they had a concept, and remember, this is, you can tell by my, you can tell by looking at me that I've been in the industry for a while, but this was in the 80s, and TI had this concept they called handheld hypermedia. And now you think of it as sort of a simplified tablet that they have, but basically they were working with something back then that had a lot of the same concepts. We were working on, essentially where you have a small amount of storage on this device. You might have a radio that could allow you to get a little bit more, but it was on a scale that was so much smaller than what you're able to do today. So I think it was a product that was ahead of its time. So much like what Tom was describing, this is one of these things we spent a bunch of time designing, and then it never really made it out into the market and in the hands of consumers. So that kind of thing is sometimes disappointing if you worked on it, but that is the nature of the industry, right? So after I left TI, I went into an ASIC organization in Toshiba. ASIC is a term that means application-specific integrated circuit. It really means a custom semiconductor device. And there I was working in their design center, helping customers use the technologies that Toshiba offered and designing custom devices. And actually, Alcatel-Lucent was one of our big customers at that time. I went from there to a short time at Sun. Then I got into the semiconductor IP thing, which, as I said, is all involved with licensing and technology out to semiconductor companies. And I worked at a few different companies in that area, including MIPS. My previous company was called CEVA, which specialized in digital signal processors. And then I moved into ARM. And I've definitely enjoyed ARM. It's probably my favorite company in my history. In career, but I have enjoyed, the variety of things that I've done, and I think, this is, as Tom was saying, I think you should keep an open mind as you're starting your careers, as you go through college and begin a career. It is hard to visualize all the different things that you might do, and it might be hard to understand in advance which ones you'll enjoy the most, and so. Keeping an open mind and trying a few different things, I think, is a good advice. But I've enjoyed, the variety of things I've done, as well as the variety of culture and so forth that I've experienced, because I've worked for bosses that were from, about 7 or 8 different countries, including, Ireland, Israel, Japan, and so forth. Because, I had worked for a Japanese company. I worked for CEVA, which is actually an Israeli company now, although it merged with an Irish company, so it was an interesting mix of cultures there. Anyway, I think it's great that you're all involved with the robotics, work and looking at that, looking at technology as a possible career choice, because I think this is an area that offers a great deal of opportunity, and I have encouraged my children that way as well. I have a daughter that graduated from UT, so hook 'em horns. She's actually now working on her PhD, and then I also have a son who's at A&M, Gato, right? So I love them both. And it's not an oxymoron; you can't love them both. But I've encouraged them. So my daughter got her degree in chemical engineering, and my son is studying mechanical engineering. So I guess have encouraged them with that, and also encourage you to continue to pursue the areas of science, technology, engineering, because I think there's enormous opportunity. I think you're also living in an exciting time. In some ways, it may look like the industry is maturing, and we do see that in certain areas of our industry. You may read some of the information that says basically the PC is dying, and it's reached a point of maturity that it will never be the same, and that may be true in certain areas. But I think there are always new things coming up, and in particular, I think some of the things that are exciting are, for one, robotics. I think we'll see a lot more of that in our everyday lives than what we have today. I mean, this is something that's been in science fiction for years, but in your daily life, you don't really see it, right? Except that you use an ATM machine or things like that, but it's not at the same level that was envisioned in the science fiction. But I think that sort of thing will come. And there is very active research in things like a driverless car, which is certainly an area with a lot of automation. I mean, it's got to have all kinds of sensors to be able to tell where the car is, what's happening around it, and so forth, and then the control systems to react to that. And that takes an enormous amount of engineering disciplines, right? It takes mechanical engineering, it takes software engineering, it takes computer engineering, electronics engineering. So there's a lot of different fields involved, and I think that's an extremely exciting area. My daughter, as I said, has a degree in chemical engineering. She's going into targeted drug delivery, and I think there's a huge opportunity for innovation and career opportunity in the area of medicine. So I think that the fact that you're interested in the science and technology area, I think you're on the right path. I think it is really hard to visualize where you might be going. I recall when I was kind of in your shoes, I grew up in a very different environment, though. I grew up in a very basically rural area of Iowa, northwest Iowa, and I decided I was going to study engineering. I ended up studying computer engineering at Iowa State University, and that was really the only university that I considered. It was, in my home state. It wasn't far away. My mom had actually gone to the school, so I thought, okay, that's a great choice. And I didn't spend time going and visiting other schools, but I encourage you to do that and try to, look at what the possibilities are. But I decided to study that, and actually I have a degree in computer engineering, but my high school didn't have a single computer in it, right? I mean, it was, this is late 70s. I graduated in 1980 from high school. And so the only time they actually had a computer is when they got one on loan from kind of an area education area that they would bring, and we could use it for for a short time, a few weeks. I think it's hard to understand some of the things that you might be studying, but I encourage you to still look at the different options, consider the different engineering disciplines, consider sciences. I think those are great areas to go into. I think basically, I think you're on the right track, and I encourage you to continue on, and wish you well as you make some of these tough decisions about where to go to school and what to study and what to do with your career. So best wishes.